You're listening to Crushing Club Marketing, a podcast for progressive club leaders ready to increase their club's revenue. The time for change begins right now.
You want younger membership, yet need to retain your existing legacy members. How do you market to both when each demographic has different needs and interests? This week's Crushing Club Marketing guest, Amy Lynch, has a few pointers you don't want to miss. She's a generations expert and the CEO of Generation Edge. In this episode, she shares some of her findings and provides tips on how to tailor your marketing efforts to the audience you want to attract.
Well, Amy, thanks so much for being with us today.
Ed, happy to be here.
You are in a fascinating industry as a speaker, consultant, and an expert in generational studies and understanding different generations and all the different communications. Tell us a little bit about your work, because I think that it's so fascinating and it's become so relevant in business today, not just in the private club industry, but in all business. How did you get into it? What are the things that really have drawn you in, and where have you found the most need in your work?
Ed, those are all great questions. You're right. It's more relevant than ever. And that's because in every business, people are working longer than ever before and sometimes just living longer than ever before. So we have more generations in play, no matter what industry you're in. So, yeah, it's very relevant. I got into this business in an interesting way because I was writing about kids, and I was writing about how to parent kids growing up in a digital era.
Oh.
And as I was writing that, that was like 15 years ago. And as I was writing that, I went, look at that. I'm writing about a generation. And then once I discovered how powerful generational studies were, I was off and running. It was easy to begin to apply generational info and generational studies to all sorts of industries.
You talk about a rabbit hole of information and learnings. I mean, that's, as we were talking earlier, as a psychology guy, I love that. What do you think is the, when a lot of people today, my peers, and I talk to them about millennials and, those millennials, and we have these discussions, right? And I was talking to someone recently, and I said, you know what? This is a generational thing that's existed for years, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. And that's how we know we're old, Ed. If you find yourself going, those millennials, and that's how you know. It's like...
Amy, I don't say that. My old friends, the friends that I have that are very old, they say those things, but not me. I'm much younger than there.
Oh, not you. How silly of me.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Right. But Ed, you're right. When baby boomers first came into the workplace, that's when the conflict starts. Because it's okay as long as people are kids. We kind of put up with them, and we kind of go, the kids. But when people come into the workplace, that's when they start to really get slammed by older generations who don't understand the way the new generation works, who don't understand perhaps the technology that the new generation grew up with, or the business models the new generation grew up with. So these young generations come in, they get slammed every time. It happened to baby boomers who were called, you worthless, long-haired hippies.
Right.
And then Gen Xers came along, and you were total slackers. I mean, just called slackers. and so now millennials are called snowflakes. And it's just part of what we always do.
And so what is it... And so obviously now that I'm in this age bracket, and some of us who are, who have had created a lot of conversation around millennials, what has made that generation different, do you think? What a great question. What has made them really different? I have to say lots of things, but two big things. One was the economy, because the economy, which had been uncertain and faltering with some booms and busts, kind of perking along, but not really well. As Gen Xers were going into the workplace, that economy soared during the 1990s, just soared when millennials were coming into the workplace. And so there were lots of jobs and lots of opportunity. And that's when millennials got the unfortunate attribute of being called entitled because they came in at a time when they were in high demand. So the economy has a big difference in how we perceive a generation. The other big thing that shaped them, of course, was technology. No generation had grown up with iPhones, and with that constant 24/7 connectivity that millennials bring to their work. So those are the two big differences.
Now, one of the things that also I'm anxious to get your perspective on, Amy, is that what I've noticed in the 15 years or so that I've been a business owner and hiring younger folks that are coming right out of college that are extremely sharp, they're one of the differences that I noticed about this generation versus, say, my generation as a Gen X boomer type guy is there's an incredible amount of confidence in the younger generation, in the, for lack of a better term, the millennial generation. There is their ability to present themselves in a very professional, mature way. It seems to me is sometimes confusing for people who are hiring those roles because they think, wow, this person is super sharp. But when they actually get in, and maybe they're not screening quite as carefully, but they're really sort of mesmerized by their ability to communicate in this very mature way. Is there something to that? Are they just better at communicating than us old people?
Well, I can tell than us old people. Oh, speak for yourself.
Sorry.
Ed, I think I can tell you're into psychology because you just went really deep. Yes, there is a confidence when it comes to presentation, when it comes to just confidence in what they can achieve. And that comes from a couple of sources. Sometimes when they were growing up, millennials were famous for getting trophies for everything and being told that they could do everything, they could achieve everything. Well, that was something some parents and some school groups did. And what that did was give sometimes young people a false sense of confidence, a confidence that isn't matched by their abilities. Now, that's not true in every case, but that's part of it. But then something else that happened was that, and this is, like I said, you went deep. Young people today grew up in a world where a more urban setting, where people didn't know them. You couldn't walk down the street and know people very easily, and they wouldn't know you. And so the way that you got to know people, or the way that you were in the world, was with a presentation. You presented. And so they kind of learned to present with confidence because the world is anonymous.
Interesting.
And people don't have a way of knowing who you are unless you present with confidence. So they did learn that skill just because they lived in a more urban setting.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad to know there's something to that because it is one of those things that I've always thought as I've talked to people that can be very confusing for them when they're hiring or, primarily business owners when they're hiring. As it relates to private clubs, and this is an area where you have some experience in speaking and presenting and having discussions with people in the private club industry. So often what we hear, and so many clubs recognize this, is this, this need to engage younger prospective members, and to engage younger members that are at their clubs. And there's this real challenge with creating an environment or messaging that appeals to a younger generation, but also they can't forget about their older membership.
Yes.
I'm just anxious to get your thoughts on what club sales directors need to think about, what membership directors need to be thoughtful of in that way as they say, hey, we got to go get younger. It's not that easy, is it? Just saying, hey, well, let's just go recruit younger members.
Oh, no, it's not easy at all. And Ed, I really think that the crux of it is that clubs have done a very, very good job of creating features and benefits that were perfect for the generations when they were created. things that felt luxurious, things that felt exclusive, things that felt, like a real benefit to me in my life or my business life, are in place at so many clubs. And we have these younger generations coming along who say, well, I don't define luxury or exclusivity the same way, and the benefits I want are something different. And so sometimes clubs really are caught in the middle of having to maintain the things that still work for their older members, and this is expensive, and at the same time, on a parallel track, develop those experiences that appeal to younger groups. So, yeah, it's hard. I can't say it's easy, but marketing to both those mindsets is pretty critical right now in the club space.
How does the messaging change for let's just take a country club that offers golf, a pool, tennis, just some really basic amenities like that. How does the messaging change from presenting that, or does it change when trying to appeal to a boomer as opposed to a millennial?
Oh, I think it does change. Let's think. There are lots and lots of answers, but the messaging. Let's look at one thing. Luxury. I think if we look into how luxury is defined by different generations, that can help us with that. For the younger generation, time is a real luxury. And so when you message anything about saving time, about being efficient, about having family time, having personal time, the time you can save yourself with club services, then that's not exactly that. Those messages about efficiency, they don't really appeal to older generations who think about time more as something they already own, and and luxury just plays its way into time. But younger generations will admittedly say, I don't have time. That's a luxury I don't have. And so if a club begins to talk about giving you quality time, then that's a message that really resonates more with younger generations.
And then how does, say, a boomer, what is when you say luxury, what does a boomer think of when they think of luxury? What does that mean to them?
It means exclusivity. It means a certain status. When we think about we can draw a parallel here.
Okay.
If I am in the older generation and I want to buy a luxury item, I want something that is high end and that people recognize as high end. It's about status. My Chanel bag, my membership at a certain club that is very high end. Well, that's status, and people can recognize that as a status symbol. Younger generations, on the other hand, if you want to talk about what's of value to them, it may not look as it does not look as much like a status symbol. Younger generations will buy something that is high value, but kind of ordinary looking. I think about brands like the Canada Goose circus, very high value, real quality, but they don't look fancy and they're not branded. See, the branding is the thing. You know that item if you already know what it is, but it's not branded in a really obvious way.
Right.
And so or Shinola watches, which look sort of simple and industrial, but are considered pretty cool by younger generations because of their simplicity and their value, their quality.
So if we break these down, we say the boomers see luxury as connected to their status, like I've arrived, I've reached this point, right? How about the Gen Xers?
Because I own this thing.
Right, because I own this thing. So how about the Gen Xers? How are they different than the boomers in how they view luxury?
It's not the luxury is not attached to a thing. for the younger generation.
Okay.
It is attached to an experience. Yeah, it's experience, not things.
And is that the same for Gen X and for Gen Y, for the millennials, or is that different? How they view luxury?
Okay. And there are gradations. You know, Ed, we can't just say, oh, here's the line
Right.
and this. But in general, Gen Xers will define luxury more often around time, and millennials will, 9 times out of 10, define luxury around an experience they can have. Yeah.
Interesting.
The percentages are very high, like 80 and 85%, depending on which study you look at, of the millennials are willing to invest in experiences more than they are willing to invest in things.
So what does that mean for a private club marketer or someone who is in membership? So, you know, it's like you have to change your position on it, right? So if it's a boomer or a Gen Xer, it's, you know, it's going to be it's status and, you know, it's time. But if you've got a young person that you're trying to appeal to for a junior membership, are you suggesting then that your talk track maybe is more around the experiences that you will have as a member of that club?
Absolutely, much more so, and we at clubs we have invested for a very long time in luxurious feeling clubhouses and meeting spaces and restaurants and all those things. Whereas younger people may value a clubhouse or a setting or a venue that looks a little more, quite frankly, industrial, a little more adventurous, a little edgy, as opposed to opulent.
It's so interesting. Yeah. So many clubs are, recently going through redesigns, or the club that I belong to is remodeling an area. And so now we get into intent, right? Because it's like, if you really want to get younger, if I have air quotes around that, if you want your membership to get younger, then as you go through these things like a redesign, as you go through rolling out new services, you have to be very clear about who you are trying to appeal to, right? I mean, you can't say, yes, we want to get younger and have a younger membership, and then, put on this edition that's really opulent and sort of extravagant and like, ooh, that's very fancy, because that appeals to the purpose and looks at luxury as a status thing. They're going to miss it.
Right. It won't work. It just won't work. And there are things that younger generations are so willing to pay for.
Like what? What are the things they're willing to pay for? Like experiences, but like, is there more?
Food, adventurous food. They want to explore and experience lots of different things. They want variety. They don't want to go to the club and say, oh my gosh, the chef has been here forever and the roast beef is always this way. They don't want that. They want adventure in every area, whether that's the trips that your club offers or the, or the food that you're offering. They want, it's, I think of a venue that we have here in Nashville. I live in Nashville, which has become a very young city. And this is not a club, so forgive me, but it's kind of analogous. There's a Pinewood Social is what this place is called. And it's a combination of an industrial-looking area that's a nice restaurant and with a chef, and it's fabulous, and the menu changes all the time. And they've put in a bowling alley, okay? And, they have a big space where you can work, where people can meet, work, open their laptops, get stuff done, coming, going, active, and it combines work and life in a very pleasurable way. So I feel like that has a lot to do, or at least is something for clubs to think about. Because, I'm sorry, one other thing just occurred to me.
Yeah.
And that is for older generations, there is a clear separation between workspace and luxury
And play,
space,
yeah,
relaxing
yeah.
space, lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and so for younger generations, they expect those places to overlap.
Yeah, I've heard this before, and although it doesn't seem to be that from what I've noticed, at least in the private club space, it seems that more clubs are clinging to that. Hey, we don't do work here. This is the place where we go to relax. And other people, have commented on, no. I mean, if you really want to appeal to a younger demographic, you try to find these places where they can come and do some work for a little while, and then maybe they go and play a little bit, and play meaning like whether it's working out or whether it's playing golf or whatever that is. That seems, the one thing I thought when I first heard that, it seemed counterintuitive to me, and it seemed counter stereotypical to me, where it's almost like so many people look at the millennials as being like, they don't want to work. They want to get away and not have to work. And yet that concept says that's not really true. They just want different places that they can work. Is that kind of what that is a riff off of, or where does that that come from?
Two things I want to mention, and one is that we know from studies that millennials do work. They work very, very long hours. In fact, they're emerging as the new workaholics of the generations. I know that's people don't believe that.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. The other concept that has come along as millennials have come into the workplace is that concept of a third space. Ed, do you know what I mean when I say a third space?
No, I don't. What does that mean?
It's not work and it's not home, but it's a place where you go that integrates relaxation and work, like a coffee house.
Oh,
coffee
sure,
house is
sure,
a third.
sure.
Yeah. And so clubs, I think more and more are going to need to adopt that position of, we're a third space.
Right.
You can come here and have fun with your friends, and you can step over to a table and have a quick business meeting while you're here.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and they don't differentiate. So many of us now live our lives this way. It's hard to differentiate between what is relaxation or time and what is work time. They blend completely. Yeah, I think
Yeah, go ahead. Finish your thought. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I was just remembering a club, and I am at a loss to remember exactly where I saw this club.
That's all right.
But it is a private city club, and it had a name something like Gathering Spot.
Okay.
In other words, you gather here, you can work here, but you can also have a lot of fun here. High-end restaurant, workspaces, simulating events. It's about experience and work and relaxation pulled together into one bundle.
Got it. That's cool.
Looking for a crash course on everything you need to know to market your club online? We've created a 30-page essential guide to digital marketing for private clubs that you don't want to miss. From optimizing your website and developing relevant content to engaging your audience through social media, this comprehensive guide will lead you through every essential step you want to be taking to effectively market your club online. Download it now at storytellermn.com/guide.
We're kind of touching on a lot of different things. And if I could just do a quick summary at this point, talking to Amy Lynch about different generations and some of the subtleties and nuances, some of the things we were talking about is the fact that there's some very clear differences in how the different generations perceive luxury, some of the messaging that goes along with that, and really trying to better understand how to, whether it's packaging what you offer as a club, or how you communicate how, the various services of your club are more important now probably than ever, especially as clubs recognize their membership is getting older. One of the things through this conversation, Amy, that's jumping out to me is this is also the people who are potentially your junior members at your clubs have grown up in an era of transparency. Like none of us are, like, I think about boomers, I think about older Gen Xers, and we grew up at a time of like false claims and advertisement. We grew up with like having to have a really good BS meter. This is a generation that is, you better be really clear about who you are and what you're all about, because if you're not, they will spread the word about your, the what they believe is the truth about you really quickly. So, given that as a backdrop, can you just talk a little bit about the importance of intent for clubs that are considering to, putting together a new messaging platform or a new, package of services? Like, they can't go halfway, can they? Or it's very difficult to try to be everything to all people, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. It's hard to be everything to all people. And Ed, it's difficult, but I think many clubs are in the position of having to determine who are we and to whom, because that may change for a lot of clubs. This transparency thing that you mentioned is enormous, but the thing about transparency with younger generations is not so much that they value it as they just expect it. It needs to be a given.
Right.
So whatever your investments are, whatever your finances are, whatever your strategies and plans are, need to be shared completely with that community who are your members or who want to be your members. And also, part of transparency is getting the feedback, incorporating the feedback, getting this, 360 degrees idea going so that people can have input into those strategies and those budgets and those plans.
Yeah, it is this idea, and we talk about this in my company as well, which is that when people when you're able to explain more to people about why and how things work, and the reasoning behind things, so that level of transparency. The one thing that an older person may not recognize, and I say that like boomer, Gen Xer, is that this is a very trusting generation. The younger generation is very trusting, and they will believe you and they will follow you as long as they really understand what is going on, and as long as you're very clear with which I found to be really what I think is most interesting about that, Amy. It's like, why wouldn't every generation have behaved like that? Why has that not always been the way that we operate, to say, this is who we are, this is what we're all about, instead of trying to be secretive about different things about your workplace or about your business,
I know. And I think the answer, why not, is really complex. And, in the club industry, Ed, why not might have to do, to some degree, with exclusivity.
Sure.
If you're sharing all that information and then taking lots of input from outside and so forth, then you may lose that patina which boomers valued of absolute exclusivity if you share a lot of information.
So let's go down that really quickly, and I've got like 3 other topics that I'm hoping to flesh out with you here in the next 10, 15 minutes, Amy. But so that idea of saying, when you create this, all right, so generationally speaking, if we think about what you're talking about with luxury and how the generations perceive luxury, if you make your club feel really exclusive online, because let's face it, if you really are interested in driving more younger members, it's important that you have some online presence that people can learn more about you. But if you're a club who makes it very difficult to find that information, how does a boomer might say, ooh, it's very exclusive. They, have this big wall. How does a millennial view something like that?
Oh, Ed, you're really onto something there. It's exactly the opposite way. The viewpoint is it's antithetical one to the other. Whereas, let's say your presentation online is a site that I can go to. I can see the site, and I can see that there's something like, for instance, a luxurious golf course in the background, but I can't get into a site because there's a login that I have to do. I have to be a member in order to log in. Well, that is the kind of exclusivity which could make a boomer feel very good,
Right.
open about the way the world is, but which would be completely off-putting to a younger person from a younger generation.
Interesting. Yeah.
A younger generation, they would want to see vibrancy and activity, and to a degree, inclusiveness. Not that everybody's going to join a club, or everybody should join a club, or everybody can join a club, but they would want to see a degree of diversity and inclusion in terms of the activities that are there, and in terms of the business community that's included in that mix. They want to see not something that is set aside from the vibrancy of the community, but something that is part of that.
Interesting. So it is that idea of they want to see themselves in their see themselves in that experience. Like, ooh, I could see myself doing that. I could see myself being a part of that.
Exactly.
It's so different. So let me play general manager and ask you a question and say, Amy, I love what you're saying. I wholeheartedly agree. Everything that I've learned and that I know about these millennials and how to get more millennial members, it's consistent with that. But I also really want to make sure that our, older members are, have a great experience as well. How do I do that?
Mm-hmm. And I think, Ed, the answer may be that we use the word and we create parallel spaces, parallel adventures and trips and experiences, while we leave those older, reliable, luxurious, reassuring, and enjoyable spaces and experiences in place.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have not seen them successfully overlap.
Right. It's so hard to do. Maybe that's why, right?
It is. Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah, because it's really, really hard to do. And, another thought along those lines is that I think it's very, very important to pull the younger people who are aspiring members or whom you would like to have as members into your circle, and to have things like focus groups, informal focus groups, idea sessions. Because as an older member, I have no way of knowing what the space or the experience should be for a millennial who lived a life very different from my own. Yeah. So I really think it's important to get those ideas from those people we aspire to attract.
Yeah, that's great. It's great insight, Amy. I have had the opportunity to see you present this ways to determine. Like, some people might say, I don't know. I think, well, you can look at a chart and see where you fall in, as far as your age and whether you're a boomer or Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z.
Yeah.
It's probably for another conversation, is the Gen Z. But if you've got some cues to be able to determine what generation you're in by phrases, and we were talking about this earlier, can you share some of those? Because I felt like, and again, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit with this, but what are some key phrases that really resonate with some generations and not so much with others?
Oh, Ed, it's a lot of fun to think of things that somebody in a generation would just never say. Like, for instance, one phrase that always seems to get a response is, if I ask the boomers in the room to say the phrase, "Oh, I think I'll just let myself go," they all go, "What?
Yeah,
No."
right.
Because boomers and stuff,
Yeah, boomers are so competitive. I mean, they were born that way with that DNA in their being. So they're very competitive. Or if you try to get boomers to say, well, average is good enough, they'll just laugh at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're so competitive. Is that the sort of thing that you're thinking about?
Absolutely, yeah. What other ones are there?
Oh, if you Gen Xers were born and grew up when you know this, when the world was speeding up. I mean, the world was just the internet. Everything had happened to make the world move faster. The time became so important, and so if you're talking to some boomers, you will never, ever, ever hear them say, "I love long meetings." They'll just never say it.
Yeah, boomers are Gen Xers.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I misspoke.
Yeah.
Xers.
Yeah,
Xers
Gen
will
Xers will never say that.
I will.
Right. Exactly.
On
Averse
the
to
other
it.
hand, boomers would say it. Yeah, meetings can be fun. It's where you get to talk and show what you've achieved. So the boomers, meetings worked for boomers to get things done, but Xers can be done by email. They don't want to go to meetings.
For sure.
Yeah, the Xers, the other thing that is, because Xers are more skeptical, they saw so many things fail and were more distrustful. We touched on that earlier in this conversation, and how transparent you have to be. So you'll never hear an Xer say, "Oh, relax, just trust," Just trust the authorities.
Yeah.
Xers don't say that.
No, totally distrusting. Which is one of the reasons why it's so hard, I think, for Xers and millennials, because millennials seem to be very trusting, and Xers are like, oh my gosh, I don't trust anyone.
I know Xers are more. Xers are more. Millennials are more trusting. You're right. It's real interesting.
All right, you got one more for us?
Oh, let's see. Millennials always expect to be able to contribute ideas, which, takes us back to what we were talking about in terms of having the young people whom you want to attract, give you the ideas for your club.
Right.
But they always want to contribute ideas, so you'll never, ever hear a millennial say, "Oh, that's okay, you don't need my input." They just don't say it. But yeah, those sorts of things, sometimes it's what people never say that tell you a little bit more about them. That's kind of fun.
That's very interesting. I love that. Thanks for humoring me with that. Hey, just a closing thought, Amy. I mean, what is for club leaders, and whether those are board members or general managers, people in leadership roles, in your opinion, is it how important would you say it is, given the demographics of the country and the way the world is today? How important is it that private clubs adapt to really appeal to and commit to that, to appealing to a younger generation?
While we know that boomers have tended, especially boomers who have resources, have tended to live longer. Boomers are no longer the largest group in the country, not by a long shot. About 20 million of the boomers who were born are now no longer with us. And millennials, on the other hand, are the biggest group in the culture, in your community, in the business, in the workplace. They're the biggest group. And Xers are second largest. So the people, if you want to build a vibrant club, you really do have to think about these younger generations.
Thanks so much, Amy. Where can people learn more about you and learn more about your work?
I'm at Generational Edge. That's the name of my business, so generationaledge.com. And as you and I have talked about, I love taking those generational demographics and the generational economic info and overlaying them with different companies and different issues and seeing what patterns we can discover. It's fun because it keeps changing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it changes so fast, it seems like these days. Everything's moving so quickly. So, and also they can find you online at your Twitter handle is at Amy Lynch Gen Edge, right?
Uh-huh.
And
yes.
You're on LinkedIn as well. So if you're interested, you're out there. You're appealing to all demographics.
Hey, I'm trying,
I love it.
The boomers, yeah.
Amy, thanks so much for spending time with us today and for sharing all of your wisdom and your insight. It's I find it fascinating, and hopefully our listeners today found it fascinating as well. But great information. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Crushing Club Marketing, sponsored by Storyteller Media and Communications. From longtime golf leaders to seasoned marketing experts, get inspired each week to elevate your club marketing efforts by tuning into our podcast, Crushing Club Marketing, free on any of your podcast apps, including iTunes, or on our sponsoring website, storytellermn.com.